So Donald Trump was talking to the leader of the Philippines, that's Duterte, and Duterte's got a horrible track record in vigilante justice, and there's been thousands of people killed in his so-called war on drugs, let alone all the other atrocious things that he has said, some of which I'll give you here in a second. But now we have the transcript of their call. This one not leaked in the US, but by the Philippines, and it's not pretty if you're a rational human being. Probably Donald Trump's proud of it. But Trump calls Duterte and tells him, I just wanted to congratulate you because I am hearing of the unbelievable job on the drug problem. Many countries have the problem, we have a problem, but what a great job you're doing. I just wanted to call and tell you that. Okay. First of all, I can't get over the fact that he sounds like a child in every single conversation. We have a problem, you have a problem. You're doing a great job, an unbelievable job, a wonderful job. So let's find out what kind of job he's doing. Huffington Post explains Duterte's violent anti-drug offensive that has killed an estimated 9,000 people, including many small-time users and dealers. By the way, to give you some context into that, roughly half are killed by police. It's not, hey, brought to justice, brought to jail, and then go through a trial and executed for horrible crimes or giant drug deals. No, they just shoot him in the street, shoot him in the head, kill him, and then send him away. And half are killed by vigilantes. So he's unleashed these lawless vigilantes throughout the Philippines to murder people that might or might not be drug dealers or users. Or maybe just their enemies in a turf war. They're vigilantes, nobody's keeping track. That's what Donald Trump thinks is a wonderful job in the war on drugs. He just wanted to call him and tell him that. Oh, you're murdering people in the streets, I love it. And he does, because he's authoritarian. Trump never believed in the American principles. He believes that there should be a strongman. He should get to fire anyone he wants. He shouldn't have to follow the law. And he's before talked about how, oh, if there's people we think are terrorists, we should kill their family members. That's the kind of guy Donald Trump is. So this is a quote, by the way, confirmed by the government of the Philippines and not denied by the US government. So this call did happen, and these quotes appear to be accurate based on that. I like this portion of the story. They say that when he said that, of course there's other people listening on the American side, not for spying reasons, because they're taking notes on our relationship and said they work at the White House, they work for Donald Trump. But those guys were, quote, they were surprised White House staffers. But how can you be surprised anymore by anything this guy says? But they're on the phone, they're listening to, okay, all right, we got a great call here with the leader of the Philippines. Got to be a little bit careful because the guy's a maniac. And Trump comes out, you're fantastic, way to kill all those people in the streets. You're doing awesome. People are like, oh, Jesus Christ, here he goes again. That's not in your notes. Nobody wrote in your notes. You're doing a fantastic job of murdering 9,000 people in the streets. Okay, but that's the real Donald Trump. Hey, and you Trump voters out there, oh, he tells it like it is. He likes to murder people in the streets. Yeah, he tells it like it is. Remember when he said I could shoot someone on 5th Avenue and my supporters wouldn't blink, they continue to support me? I hope that was a metaphor. Hope. Okay, now back to the Huffington Post on how bad Duterte's reign has been. He has drawn widespread condemnation from human rights groups, which have accused Duterte of condoning a lawless drug war that has terrorized the nation with a campaign of extrajudicial killings carried out by vigilantes and police officers. Duterte has seemingly embraced this barbaric depiction, comparing himself with Adolf Hitler on a mission to kill millions of drug addicts, not people who are selling drugs, people who are using drugs. He made a Hitler comparison positively to himself. He said, I would like to be like Hitler. Oh, you're doing a wonderful job, oh, great job. The staffers are of course surprised, oh, come on, man. The guy said he'd like to be Hitler, oh, wonderful, oh, I just want to call you and tell you, great job on trying to be like Hitler. Now, does he really understand what he's doing though? Well, Trump also said on the call, I understand that and fully understand that, and I think we had a previous president who did not understand that, but I understand that, and we have spoken about this before. Duterte had called Obama son of a bitch because Obama actually thought maybe you shouldn't murder people in the streets. And apparently, Donald Trump understands that because he told us 8 times in a row right there, right? And telling him, man, don't worry about it, man. Go kill. Obama's gone. New sheriff in town. New sheriff says murder people in the streets. America no longer cares about human rights. Okay, Michael Collins, who is Deputy Director for Drug Policy Alliance, says, it fills me with disgust to see the US president congratulate someone who has overseen the massacre of thousands of his own people in the name of the war on drugs. Hey, libertarians who voted for Donald Trump, how you feeling now? Oh, yeah, man, he's gonna be great, don't worry. No, he's a reasonable guy, he's not like the Republicans. War on drugs? Jeff Sessions is on a war path. He's just increased the war on drugs substantially. And he says he might even go into the states that have legalized it anyway. And now you got the president calling people who are massacring even drug users and congratulating them. Good job, libertarians, really well played. One last thing, not having to do the war on drugs. Donald Trump, once again, couldn't help himself. And in the middle of the discussions, started telling them where our military is and what they're headed to do. Why are you telling the leader of another country where our ships are? Why are you doing that? So he said on the call, we have a lot of firepower over there, referring to the waters in Asia near North Korea. He said, we have 2 submarines, the best in the world. We have 2 nuclear submarines, not that we want to use them at all. I've never seen anything like they are, but we don't have to use this, but he could be crazy, so we'll see what happens, referring to Kim Jong-un, a name of course he's not familiar with. He refers to them as this gentleman because he doesn't know his name at all. Okay. I think other foreign leaders know we have the best submarines in the world. It is not news to them. But he's like a child. Somebody described the submarines to him. He's like, oh, I'm gonna tell them where they are. They're by North Korea and they're the best submarines in the world. Did you know how good our submarines are? They're amazing, I've never seen anything like it. Of course you've never seen anything like our nuclear submarines. Where else would you see that? Child, through and through, and a petulant, angry, dictatorial child. So when he sees Duterte, he sees a role model. Our journalism drive is almost over. It ends in Trump's first 100 days. We need to hire more reporters and more watchdogs. Let's do that right now at tytnetwork.com/go.